Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Very good morning. Very good morning to you all. We're going to kick off bang on time, even though colleagues are coming in, because I hope we've got a packed agenda over the next hour for you. So very good morning to you all and welcome. My name is Dick Hallam, and I'm the chair of the Music Education Council. And it's my very great pleasure to be facilitating this session for you on GCSEs and AS and A levels, but obviously looking at GCSE in particular at the moment. I'm joined by various colleagues on the panel. We've got Simon Banks, who's the Reform Manager from Ofqual, Jeremy Ward, the Qualifications Developer for Arts and Performing Arts from AQA, Marie Jones, who is a Subject Specialist for OCR, Joe Cleary, who's a Senior Manager with Pearson, and Catherine Webster, who is a Subject Officer for WJEC. So I don't know if many of you were here about a year ago when MEC also ran a similar session. A quick show of hands. Anybody here last year? A smattering of people. Well, excuse me, is this coming across? I'm getting a funny feedback myself. Too quiet. Hold it up. How's that? Is that better? That way. That way.
Hold it up
Like a pop star, I'm told. How's that? My word. Is that better for everybody? Right. Okay. I will endeavour to keep this pose and say very quickly, my name's Dick Hallam. I am the chair of Music Education Council. I hope all of you know what the Music Education Council is, but if anybody doesn't for any reason, it is very much the umbrella body, the council where all of the organisations and individuals who are interested in music education come together, so where we find out if we've got a united voice or a majority of voice around certain issues, so that we have the weight of the whole sector from the informal right the way through the formal in the classroom and music services and things like orchestras who have education departments. All of those come together. So MEC is the place where we try and make sure that if we're talking to government, we are clear about what should be happening for music education and what our priorities are. So MEC was very involved a year ago when the consultation period was going on, and MEC, along with people like the National Association for Music Higher Education and the ISM and the MU and Music Mark, all of those organisations, we come together, and we were asked to do another session on GCSEs, which of course is there for all of you in massive interest. So what the idea is that we will have very much interplay. I'm not going to have everybody speaking and then come to you for questions, but I'll try and manage the time so all the people on the panel can say something, but also you have your say too. And the way we're going to kick that off straight away is with Simon Banks, who's the Reform Manager from Ofqual, who's going to set the context of basically where we are, how we've got here, and where we are next, so that we're clear about those things. So Simon, if I may hand straight over to you, please.
Can everybody hear me? I can hear myself, which is always a good sign. A big welcome to everybody, and a big thank you to Dick and to the colleagues here for inviting us to speak at this event. There's a fantastic buzz here, and it's great to be able to be part of it. I'm a reform manager at Ofqual, working on the reform programme on GCSEs and A-levels, and my intention in the next 15 or so minutes is to give the context in which the new GCSEs and A-levels in music sit. So really four things I'm going to be looking at: responsibilities for reform, what new GCSEs, AS and A-levels will look like, a bit about the timetable for reform, always an important section, and finally a little bit, but leading in, I hope, hopefully usefully to my colleagues from the exam boards, into music GCSE, AS and A-level and the detail of those. So the responsibility for the reform programme is, it's government policy to have a reform programme, and the Department for Education oversees that. They decide overall policy on qualifications, and they make arrangements for content and curriculum development. Ofqual is responsible for qualifications, but not for curriculum. The curriculum belongs with the department. Our responsibilities are that we're responsible for securing overall standards in qualifications. We set rules for and monitor exam board performance. And we set criteria for the design of qualifications. So, for example, we might set criteria about how they're structured or about how they're assessed. And we do accredit GCSE and A-level, so there is no GCSE and A-level that we haven't formally accredited. And finally, but very importantly, we oversee the awarding of GCSEs, A-levels and AS and A-levels to ensure standards are maintained consistently and fairly. It then has a rather pathetic little bullet at the bottom that says exam boards design and deliver qualifications, but there's a whole universe of stuff there, and my colleagues will be able to give you a sense of just how rich that is. So just to look at the government's policy aims for GCSEs, a desire to increase demand, more challenging subject content and providing stretching assessment. A desire that the qualifications should stay the same size as they currently are, but that we would move to a linear structure with assessment at the end of the course. And as I think you'll all know, the idea behind that is that that gives more time to concentrate on teaching and learning and not in an endless cycle of assessment and reassessment. There's also a desire to limit tiering, and certainly as far as music is concerned, there is no tiering in the reform qualifications. And for GCSEs, a new grading scale. And this happens to be the same date for the A-levels as well, but introduced first reform subjects ready to teach in September 2015. But as I think you'll all be aware, music begins first teaching 2016 and first assessment for the A-level and the GCSE 2018. So policy aims for AS and A-level. The general feeling that A-levels are in good nick, but there's a desire to have separation between AS and A-level. I think you'll all be aware of the impact that that's having. A desire to have, again, a linear structure with assessment at the end of the course, although that does vary if you're looking at something like music, which has got practical elements in it. And there was a desire that the qualification standard and the grading scale will remain the same. So I'll trot through this slide fairly quickly, but this is some of the things that we're doing at Ofqual. So we're requiring core content, or we're requiring it, but the department's developing it with the exam boards. Each exam board specification should cover the same core of content, tackles potential to compete over content, but should still allow innovation. And one of the things that matters very much to us is that although you can be guaranteed what you get on the tin from somebody who's got a GCSE or an A-level in music, that doesn't mean that there's been absolute rigidity and everybody will have studied the same thing. And getting that balance so that you can trust reliably but also have richness and variety is critical to our work. We're doing work on tightening assessment objectives, being carefully and precisely expressed and proportioned to reduce the potential for objectives that can be variably interpreted. So making sure that exam boards, despite their rich variety, are assessing at the same standard is critical to the whole business. We're also requiring assessment strategies, so that basically is an exam board showing us how they're planning to keep this qualification running. And there's a very important aspect of any qualification, which is predictability and unpredictability. On the one hand, people shouldn't get any nasty surprises. On the other hand, they shouldn't get something that's so familiar it's a waste of their time going into the exam room. So getting that right is something that we look to the exam boards to demonstrate to us as they're putting forward their qualification for accreditation. So a quick trot through what the new GCSEs will look like. They're linear with all exams in the summer at the end of the course. The assessment is exam where possible, other forms of assessment only where necessary to assess essential subject skills. A strong steer from the department about examination as a mechanism for reliability. Tiered assessments only where necessary. Standard accessible to the same proportion of Key Stage 4 students as at present. So people who can access the current GCSE should be able to access this one. And grading a new numbered scale from 9 to 1 plus U, 9 is the highest. And that's basically the grading scale for the new GCSE against the old one. As a starting position 4 in the new scale in the first awarding will be equivalent to a C, but once those standards develop their own momentum and we're using data from the new grading scales, that absolute parallel may at some stage break free, but certainly for that first year we'll be looking at an equivalent of 4 and C. So what will reformed AS A-levels look like? Broadly fit for purpose, but there are other areas for improvement as a general policy steer. Structure all exams in the summer at the end of the course, obviously not when you've got particular practical examinations as well. The assessment exam where possible, other forms of assessment only where necessary to assess essential subject skills. And the grading in this case staying the same, so the grading scale that is familiar to everybody on current AS and A-levels remains. And demand, broadly speaking, government policy and what we've put into effect is the same level of challenge as current AS A-levels. Just a little bit on the timetable. The first teaching of first tranche of new GCSEs and A-levels begins in September 2015. The music comes into effect from September 2016, and there are a final tranche of subjects that will be developed for 2017 first teaching, first assessment 2019, and those are announcements about those are going to be made next week. So in the first year we had flagship qualifications for the government, maths, English language and English literature, and a variety of AS levels. September 2016, a rich range of subjects, including a large number of arts subjects, of which music obviously is an important one. And September 2017, we've got design and technology at both GCSE and A-level coming out at that time, and maths and further maths. And there will be other qualifications, other subject areas joining that list, as I say, an announcement regarding that next week. So before passing over to the exam boards, I'd just like to say some key points about the structure that we've put in place for GCSEs and then later for A-levels, and to show you the assessment objectives. One thing I would say, as a person who's involved in regulatory decisions, regulations have a habit of looking horribly dry and as if they're taking the bones, they're taking the lifeblood out of something. But my favourite analogy on this is that a human being is a marvellous, rich, living thing, but underneath it is a skeleton that needs to be in place. And to a certain extent, we have to put that skeleton in place to guarantee that that living being can live and breathe and get on with all that good stuff. But within the assessment objectives, we have laid out very clearly what it is that the assessment should be assessing in terms of the basic and fundamental skills. So 30% performing with technical control and expression and interpretation. So that is about performance. AO2 is about composing. I know that there's a lot of very, very detailed heart searching went on about whether one should have composing within these assessments. Not everybody who loves music is a composer. However, people, I think after a great deal of thought, believed that composition is so enriching as something which gets to the heart of what's going on in music that it was worth including, and that's what happened in the content. So we have a 30% weighting for assessment of composition and development of musical ideas. We then have use appraising skills to make evaluative and critical judgments which demonstrate understanding of musical elements, musical context and musical language. So that's about the ability to respond to music and appraise it. And finally, demonstrate and apply knowledge of musical elements, musical context and musical language. So that's knowledge of music. I think it's worth saying that musical elements, musical context and musical language are key to the content, and that's a fuses the entire qualification so that in performing, that knowledge is expressed through the performance. In composing, that knowledge is expressed through the composition. So we are looking at an integrated whole of assessment that isn't, I think, as sometimes people might assume when they looked at these documents, being carved up in some artificial way. The AS and A-level assessment objectives are pretty similar. In some ways you might be surprised at that, but I suppose part of this is to do with the fact that music doesn't change. Whether you're studying music at 16 and being assessed on music at 16 or at 18, the fundamentals of what's going on in music and music assessment don't change. The one thing that I would draw attention to is the fact that we have an opportunity for a change of percentage. So the performance can vary from 25 to 35%, and the composition, which is AO2, can also vary from 25 to 35. And that's basically saying that those people, those young people who develop a flair for composition, or those people who develop a flair for performance, can in a, and we have to be delicate about this, but we are allowing them to tailor their assessment to their strengths, and that's a big conversation behind that. But I think that's good. The last thing, oh yes, last slide. Last one. Last thing is, this is a quote. If you haven't read the content, I would encourage you to read this. This is a quote from the content. And I give this quote because I think it shows that there is a rich variety, or potential for rich variety, from the exam boards as to what people study. These words in the content have been highly argued over. Thank you to all those people who responded to the various consultations. But it says now this: music specifications must require students to demonstrate knowledge, understanding and skills through an in-depth study of a minimum of 2 areas of study at AS level and a minimum of 3 areas of study at A level. I'm talking about the A level here, obviously. At least one area of study must be drawn from music composed in the Western classical tradition, with all or the majority being composed between 1650 and 1910. At least one other area of study must not be drawn from the Western classical tradition. And then it talks about choice. And I think that there was a huge amount of work went into this, but I feel that, painful though these decisions have been, the balance is about right. So everybody does get to do something in the Western classical tradition, but everybody also does get to do something that isn't. And people are guaranteed within their learning experiences, and well, more importantly, they're guaranteed in their assessment experiences, that range of experience can be incorporated into their assessment. Now, what those areas of studies are, I'm proud to say that I have no idea. But I hope you over there have, because they're expecting to be submitting the qualifications for accreditation quite soon. So there's a rich world of potential areas of study there. But as I say, our critical thing is to make sure that what has to be guaranteed is guaranteed, but where freedom can be given, it is given. And thank you to everybody who's helped us to make those incredibly challenging knife-edge decisions. Okay.
Thank you to Simon. And very quickly, for those of you at the back of the room who perhaps can't read the very bottom of the slide, there are 2 words that jump out to me as being very important. The asterisk points out that for the purposes of this subject content document, Western classical tradition is defined as art music of or growing out of the European tradition. And the word for me that is critical, as I look to our colleagues from the band, from the various boards, is normally notated and normally intended for public performance. So not necessarily exclusively, there may be some room for manoeuvre there, which we shall no doubt hear about in due course. Before I take comments from the floor, I'm going to very quickly hand over to Joe, who can give a little bit more context about where we are today, and then we'll rapidly move on to the area where not only you can seek further information, but actually you can contribute to the process.
Are these on?
Wherever suits you.
Sorry, there's more people in this room than I expected, so hi, first of all. My name's Jo Cleary, and I'm a senior manager at Pearson, and we look after EdXL qualifications. I wanted to give you a little bit of context to the process we've gone through to develop the subject criteria. So for all the subject criteria for the 2016 subjects, DFE and Ofqual have asked all the awarding organisations to work together to feed into that process. So I've led the group of my colleagues Jeremy, Marie and Catherine, and together, along with stakeholders including ISM and MEC, we have been feeding into the DFE and Ofqual information on the content, ways to word things, and information on the assessment objectives. Just a point of note for the assessment objectives that Simon just showed you through, they have changed slightly. The essence of them remains the same, but there's a consultation document out at the moment which closes today with slightly different wording. So just in case anyone's seen that, I don't want you to be put off. It is exactly the essence of what Simon was saying. Now, I wanted to go through the rules that have been put in place. DFE and Ofqual have now finished all their consultations on the content and the assessment of these qualifications. The rules I'm about to go through have been put in place via that process and are the same for all of the awarding organisations. So just so you're aware, when we develop our qualifications, we will do more research, we will talk to our customers, find out how we can differentiate our qualifications, but it still has to be within these rules. So the first thing is the GCSE has a split of 40% exam, 60% non-examined assessment. Of that non-examined assessment, which is 60%, 30% is performance. At GCSE, there has to be at least 2 performances. One has to be as part of an ensemble and last for a minimum of 1 minute. And the other can either be as a soloist or also as part of an ensemble. But together, both those performances need to equate to a minimum of 4 minutes. Again, this is for all of us. On composition, students need to compose 2 pieces minimum. One needs to be in response to a brief released by the awarding organisation, and there will be a common release date between us for that. The other needs to be a free composition where the student can define their own starting point. And both those compositions together need to be a total of 3 minutes. The appraisal section is your exam, and that is 40% of the qualification. In the subject criteria, exactly as Simon has just spoken through, we now have musical elements, context and language defined that we will all have there as part of the appraising. There is definitely areas of study. There has to be a minimum of 4 for GCSE for all of us. And exactly as Simon said, one has to be based in Western Classical between 1650 and 1910, and one must not be based in Western Classical. So those are the rules for the GCSE. For AS, again, performance 30%. There isn't a set number of pieces, but it needs to be a minimum of 6 minutes. Composition, again, 30% of the qualification. Minimum of 2 pieces. 1 to a brief, which the boards will release, and the second one can either be a free composition or also in response to a brief. And altogether, those 2 have to equate to 4.5 minutes. Minimum of 4.5 minutes. Again, for the appraisal aspect, that's 40%, that's the exam. Again, there needs to be areas of study, a minimum of 2, 1 based in Western Classical, 1 not based in Western Classical. And then for the A level, you have a slight range. So your non-examined assessment, which is your performance and composition, has to total 60%. But it's up to the awarding organisations how they pick the weighting between that. They can weight them at 25, 30 or 35, so if they'd like to put an emphasis on performance, they can do that, or an emphasis on composition. So because of that, some of the timings are a bit skew, but basically performance, again, you're performing no minimum number of pieces, either 6, 8 or 10 minutes, depending on the weighting. Composition, 2 pieces, 1 to a brief, either for 4, 6 or 8 minutes, depending on the weighting. And then for appraising, again, there's areas of study, a minimum of 3, 1 based in Western Classical and 1 based in something that isn't Western Classical. So those are the rules that we all have to work within, which are set in place for this development. I just wanted to let you have that information before we had any questions, so you know the rules we're working with.
Thanks, Joe, for that. Very much indeed. As you say, we've got colleagues from the awarding bodies, but I just wonder whether there are any relatively quick points for clarification that colleagues would like to make before we move on to the section. And I'm going to do the job running up and down bit, and I'll get to you in a second, sir. But just to say that there is a chance that the awarding bodies are still working on the detail of their requirements. So the opportunity not only to question, but to move forward and think about the things that, can you make sure something like that is in there within these rules, then this is your opportunity to make your pitch.
Good morning, Mark Wynne, music teacher at Comprehensive School. Terribly disappointed that the media perception is going to be focused on dead composers. Why are you so scared of 20th century music? This element of must is just taking away most of the best music of the last 100 years. It's a terrible shame you've missed that opportunity.
Thank you. What I'll do is I'll run up and down this aisle. So, David, I can see you over there. But I'll do 1 or 2 people this side and then go around afterwards. But if we take 3 or 4 comments, then we'll try and pick up. Because, as I say, some of these things are no longer negotiable, and we will have to be fighting for them in the future for the next iteration.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name's Robert. I'm a private piano teacher. Will there be a publication document available? Sorry. Will there be a publication document available? Will they publish all of this on the website or something like that for everybody to refer to?
Thank you. So we're looking at documentation and where we can find it, and a comment about the classical tradition.
Hi, just wondering where all the harmony and the counterpoint and the techniques basically will lie, if at all.
Thank you very much.
Judith Robinson, Sound and Music. I'm interested in the variability of the weighting. I'm interested in how young composers are going to be able to show their talent. I suspect that it might not be the favourite choice of a teacher teaching a class. So how do those who excel at composing actually get to demonstrate their talent if it's the exam board setting the weighting and not a student choice?
Okay, let's try and get some quick answers to those, and then I'll come to 2 more gentlemen next. Anybody want to pick up on that? Catherine, thank you.
Hi. In response to Judith's comment, we are intending, well, WJEC is intending, I'm Catherine, by the way, from WJEC, to give it to the student to choose. So it's for them to be able to select which option they want to do in terms of performing and composing.
Anybody want to pick up the where to find the information and the point about the classical tradition?
Sorry, it's Joe from Pearson. The bit about where to find the information, because these documents are owned, the rules are owned by the Department for Education and Ofqual. They're available on the Department for Education and Ofqual's website, both the subject criteria for GCSE and also the subject criteria for A-level. The rules that I spoke through earlier are being published today, and they will be available on the Ofqual website and I believe the DFE website as well. If anyone would like to know more information on where to find them, I'm around today. We've got a stand just outside of this room, and I'm happy to show anyone where they can find those documents.
Thank you. The harmony and counterpoint comment? Jeremy from AQA?
Yeah, it's Jeremy from AQA. I'd like to just pick up on the point of the dead composers, if I may. I come from a fairly contemporary background myself, but we at AQA have used this as a real point to bring, if you like, dead composers up to date. And so it's not always to look at it in the past, but you can bring it up to date and make it more contemporary. So there are ways, and it is an important period of music that we can't ignore. It doesn't say that what percentage we have to concentrate on the area of study. So we do have a certain amount of freedom in the way that we approach it. And I think that's a very, we at AQA have taken that as a very exciting opportunity to make classical music relevant and contemporary for today. So that's that point. I don't know if anybody wants to do the...
Well, I agree on that point, that living composers are important and they won't be ignored, I don't think. So you can be assured of that. And as far as the harmony and counterpoint is concerned, there are ways of approaching that within the composition. So it's not necessarily going at all. And it's not.
Yeah, we at AQA, we do recognise that it's a very valuable tool and it is not going, but it's obviously made to it fits very nicely with the composition brief, possibly. I can't possibly comment.
Okay, so harmony and counterpoint will be there. Yeah.
Chris Collins, National Association for Music in Higher Education. I just wanted to observe, really, for Simon, to be honest, our disappointment that both the DFE and Ofqual had a very large number of responses to the consultation, 600 to the DFE, 400 to Ofqual, the majority of which made observations that have been completely disregarded, including that the amount of non-examined assessment should be much higher than 60%. Preferably 70%, and also that having minimum lengths for compositions is an absurdity because it does not take into account tempo, complexity, and so on.
Sorry, did you wish to comment on that? No. I would like to pick up what a previous speaker said on the choice of waiting for performance or composition. Did you say that it will be, is it up to the teacher and the pupil to choose the board? Is it going to be the board's decision, or rather like the Welsh board, it's going to be up to the school to decide within that board?
So I'm just going to respond to that one quickly, if that's all right. So the assessment objectives gives the awarding organisations the choice. Now, an awarding organisation can say we're only going to offer one option, or an awarding organisation could say we'll offer different ranges and allow it to be up to the student. So it's down to the individual boards for their approach.
And that is only at A-level, it's not at any of the others, just A-level.
Oh, hello, Ben Sambrook. Question for Simon. Tiny one, really, but what's the difference between compose at GCSE and create at AS and A-level? I think there's a really big common misnomer in music education that musical creativity is the same as composition, which I don't agree with at all. So I just wondered if there was any significance in that at all, because composition denotes things being written down and creating things could be wildly divergent from that. So does that mean anything?
Anybody want to take that one while I move around quickly to the next?
So I can jump in slightly in this one. We fed into the wording of the assessment objectives, all the boards and the stakeholders we work with. Initially at GCSE, the word compose wasn't in there, and I believe through the first consultation that changed because a lot of people responded for GCSE saying they wanted to see the word compose, and so it was put in at GCSE, and I believe that wasn't the response for A-level. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Simon, but I believe that's why the word was changed at GCSE, my understanding.
Henry Van, Head of External Affairs at the Incorporated Society of Musicians. Just a very quick question about moderation for composition or creation or whatever we're going to accurately call it. One of the biggest problems teachers tend to come to us with is that their composition, they send it away, they've assessed it, it gets moderated down, or it gets moderated in an absurd way, and they have no idea how that's happened or why that's happened. What used to happen was local or regional moderation of groups of teachers with somebody from the awarding organisation there to guide that. So what I'd be interested to know is, partly from Ofqual, is that going to be possible? And partly from the awarding organisations, are you looking at how you solve the problem of composition moderation?
Yeah, please go for that.
I haven't forgotten Chris, by the way. In terms of moderation, we have requirements in terms of securing reliability of assessment, and exactly what proposal for moderation the exam boards come up with is to some degree up to them. Having said that, they will need to reassure us that the kind of local model you're describing is reliable. If they're able to do that, then that can become part of their assessment strategy. But we will be looking very seriously indeed at whether the rigour and reliability that we require can be achieved by whatever model is proposed.
Yeah. Can I jump in as well? The other thing in the consultation, which is out at the moment, so I'm speaking for all four of us here, the consultation that the results we published today suggest that at A level, the entire qualification is externally marked, which means there won't be any moderation for performance and composition. The pieces will be submitted to the board and the board will mark it. The suggestion is that GCSE performance and composition will be internally assessed by teachers and then externally moderated. Now I'm going to speak for just me from Pearson rather than all of us, is to say for us, for our approach to performance and composition, we're currently conducting a lot of market research with teachers, developing new grids and looking at ways to better support teachers applying that assessment criteria. I'm sure my colleagues are doing similar things.
Maria OCR, by the way, haven't managed to get a word in yet. But I was just going to add almost exactly that, but it's going to be the responsibility of the exam boards to make sure that the teachers who are teaching it and therefore needing to assess, even if it's not the final thing that they're assessing, they are going to need to understand how our mark schemes are applied. And one of the things that I am working extremely hard on at OCR is making sure that we're going to have a lot of resources, a lot of support, a lot of training sessions, because everything is going to be different, because at the moment as it stands everything will be externally assessed. So it is a responsibility of ours to make sure that teachers have that training in place, and as ex-teachers we know how desperately important that is.
Okay, David Ashworth, freelance. What Ofqual have given us this morning is a masterclass in how to rearrange deck chairs. They have not addressed the two central concerns we all have and have had for a long time, and they are that too few kids are doing GCSE and A-level for good reason, and the ones that do are getting wildly misassessed. So many of them, as Henry says, they're just not getting the assessments they deserve. And until these problems are addressed, we are simply tweaking with things, and I wish the exam boards all the best in doing what they can with this. If this specification had been presented to a room full of art teachers, you would have a riot on your hands this morning. And so it's up to MEC and others to keep fighting the good fight, because we certainly haven't won it this time, but we do need to win it if kids are going to get the music education they deserve.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I say that, hopefully you've got a sense of where we are and where the consultations and the decisions have come to date. We've got another 20 minutes, and indeed, okay, we've got another 20 minutes, and Simon obviously wants to have a quick response, but what I want to move us on to, if I may, is the fact that we are where we are. We will continue to listen, we continue to have dialogues, but what there is the opportunity for is the conversation from the exam boards now about how we make the absolute best for all young people. And I would, as I said yesterday in a session, including those with special educational needs and disabilities. We need music to be accessible to absolutely everybody. With the exam boards, we can look at how we're going to do that, because this is what we've got for 2016. The consultations and the negotiations for this round have now ended. That doesn't stop us fighting the battles on behalf of the sector for the future. But Simon, you wanted to respond.
Yeah, just an important point, really, Chris's points. I mean, at the end of the day, if your view is that these decisions should have been different, then I can only have utter respect for that. The one thing I would like to pick you up on, though, when you said that these things had been utterly ignored, I can assure you that every response that was made to all of the consultations was read very carefully and discussed very carefully by large numbers of people involved in music. I can also say, and this is out of turn almost, because we couldn't say this about every single subject in the reform, but a head of department of a Coventry school, a head of a music department at a Coventry school, happens to be working in the reform team Ofqual. She's passionate about her subject. It's not just her, but she was reading this stuff as it came in by the minute, and she knows who said what when. And the point that I would like to make is I'm sorry if some of the decisions are not as you would have wanted, but I absolutely would not accept that we've not listened. We really did.
Thank you, Simon. And I also need to say I was possibly being a little too creative in my drawing attention to the word normally. So we'll leave that to the exam boards to decide where normally can fit. I used to enjoy working with normalies and guidelines rather than rules, but that's another story. Ladies and gentlemen from the exam boards, can I quickly ask you to say a few words on the things that matter most to you, and then we've got 20 minutes, so as much as you need to say, but keep it brief, and then we'll try and take comments when all four have had a chance to say a few words. Catherine, let's come up we'll go for Joe first. You made a little bit of a start. Joe, yes.
Okay. Hi again. First of all, to say I'm here all of today. We've got a stand just over here to the right. Please come and talk to us. We're conducting a lot of research at the moment with teachers around what the areas of study should be to ensure we cover the broad range of music which is there and available. We're passionate about ensuring that the mark schemes we create for both performance and composition are accurate and can be applied by teachers, and they can understand how they're applied and what students need to achieve. We're also working with a wide range of publishers to ensure that you will be fully supported when the new qualifications come out, and also we'll be developing a lot of free support which will be up on the website. And my last thing, which applies across all four, is we'll submit our draft specifications to Ofqual for accreditation on the 14th of May. So that's a date that everyone should circle, because just after that, I'm pretty sure all of us will be putting them up on websites. So that's when you'll get to see the first specifications that we're submitting. So 14th of May is the date we're working towards.
Thank you, Joe. Jeremy.
Yes, it's Jeremy here from AQA. I'd just like to say that we're all very aware. We've worked very, very closely, and we get on very well, I think, and we sort of say a lot of the same things, and we feel a lot of the same things. From AQA's perspective, we're very aware of the changing ways that students learn music, and that's in various ways, the types of music they learn and what they play and how they want to apply it. So we're really keen that that is brought to the fore in this new qualification. We're also very, very aware, as all the boards have said today, that the assessment needs to be incredibly clear, and the language needs to have complete clarity, and that there should be no room for misunderstanding. And we are all very passionate about that. We know composition is probably the area where that comes up the most, and I certainly can speak from our point of view that that is been a primary place that we've started in looking at the way that teachers and examiners won't have that room for ambiguity. And I'm very pleased with where we've got, but we still have got till May to get it better. So as Joe said, we too have a standout here. Do come and find us. Do give me your thoughts, because there is still time to take that on board. And I think that it's important, as far as AQA is concerned, that to remember that these qualifications aren't always necessarily for progression from GCSE to AS to A-level to university, that there's always the consideration for what other music students in particular are going to do with these qualifications, that they don't always want to go to university, there are other things they want to do with them. So we are developing our qualifications with that sort of thing in mind. But I've taken this reform as a great opportunity, rather than all the sort of negative things that we could look at, and looked at it to make the best that we can do for today's and tomorrow's learners. And I think that there's a lot in here that is great, and we can bring out a great qualification. So, as Joe said, 14th of May, go on all our websites and see what we've managed to come up with.
Thank you, Jeremy. Marie.
Yeah, keep it brief. Yes. Maria, OCR, also same as these two. I do have a stand. I can see a lot of faces that I've already spoken to, so if this has brought up any more questions, please do come back and see me, because chatting's my favourite thing to do. Again, my role at OCR since July has been one of improvement. I spent my first couple of months looking as an ex-OCR teacher, head of department myself, that I knew what some of the current issues and strengths were of our specifications, and I've been from Southend to Carlisle finding out what else those issues are. I've attended awarding and standardisation this summer to see how it works within OCR, and again, it's all about seeing this as an opportunity. I was going to say that.
Sorry,
for
but you and I say
improvement.
the same
We're
thing.
just the same, you and I. It's terrifying. Again, I've been looking at current issues and strengths, and the same as Jeremy just said, composition is an area where there is an awful lot of improvement that needs to happen, to have fair mark schemes and understanding of those mark schemes to make sure that there isn't room for ambiguity. Also, I'm very passionate about inclusivity and differentiation, and I've been working really, really hard with my developers and the teachers that I've been consulting with to make sure that every student that's got an interest in music, whether they are a DJ from Basildon or whether they attend an independent school and have had flute lessons since they were 8, that they've all got an opportunity within our specifications to choose a pathway that suits them the best. There's more room for manoeuvre at A-level with those weightings that we have options with, and I'm looking really hard into teachers and candidates being able to make those decisions and not them being prescribed by us. It's a battle, but I'm getting there. Also, you know, the pathways could be instruments, they could be areas of study, they could be the genres, and again, it's all about getting the broad range in there. I would like to stress that the areas of study, I've taken them as a minimum. There won't only be 2 or only 3, there will be more, for there to be that element of choice and optionality and differentiation and individualisation, is that a word, for our students when they are in our classrooms. And again, it's all about the support, the resources, the fact that we exist to talk to and to be approachable and accessible to teachers and centres. I think that's it.
Yeah, Catherine, thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine from WJEC. I feel like I'm doing a 5-minute trolley dash at a supermarket because it's like I have 5 minutes to sell why we're better than them. But as you can see, we are tied in many ways, that a lot of things that have been decided at a higher level and all the boards have to do them. So I just wanted to, rather than go over the same things again, because I agree with them on all these things that they've said, but I just wanted to draw your attention to our new brand, which is Educas, and that is a brand for qualifications in England, because as you're aware, Wales is doing its own thing, doing something different. So we have a specific brand of qualifications for England, and I think one of our unique selling points is our accessibility. If you phone up the number on the leaflet, I have put leaflets out, but are not on every chair yet, you will get through to me rather than to a call centre of any kind, and you will be able to speak to a subject specialist. So I just wanted to say as well that we have the pupils at the heart of our qualifications, and that's why we are going for flexibility, which is the pupil's choice rather than our choice and the centre's choice, etc. So I'll leave it there rather than repeat everything else that I agree with there. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues, and thank you for your brevity as well, because that gives us about 10 minutes for comments that colleagues want to make. Don't forget that date, 14th of May, and don't forget the opportunity to visit all these colleagues at their various stands or to catch them. But let's take your comments now. Thank you.
Hello, it's a question more than a comment. I come from a school which is proposing that everybody does AS exams at the end of the lower 6 anyway. For the performance and composition, is there anything that can be used in both years, or do they have to compose 2 years' worth of stuff in the upper 6?
Thank you. Do you want to pick that while I go to the next person?
I'll respond so I can take. So, Joe from Pearson here. I know with our AS and A-level qualification, we're designing them to ensure that year 1 of the A-level is co-teachable with the AS qualification. I also worked on the art development in 2015, and exactly the same question came up about if they produce something in the AS, can this be used towards the A-level? The response that's come from Ofqual and the decision on that is yes, it can be, as long as it is improved upon or added to. So just bear in mind those minimum times, because the minimum times at AS are shorter than they are at A-level, so you wouldn't be able just to submit the same work. Also, the level of demand of the qualification is different between AS and A-level, but I'm sure each board is building a way that those qualifications can be co-teachable, because, yeah, everyone's nodding. We're all building a way that can be co-teachable.
Hi, I was just wondering what was happening with the music technology A-level, and if it's just Pearson that's going to continue doing it, or if the other exam board's going to continue to actually bring out a Spec 2.
So I'll respond from Pearson, first of all. As Simon mentioned when he went through the presentation, 2017 subjects are being reviewed at the moment to confirm which ones are going to be reformed for 2017. Music technology as an AS and A-level is in that tranche of subjects which are being reviewed. I believe Simon said it's being announced next week.
Announcement next week.
If music technology is in that group of subjects that will continue and be reformed in 2017, we are planning to develop a new specification for music technology for 2017.
Jeremy here from AQA. Technology, we're not bringing out a separate qualification, but our new qualification has put technology exactly the same path throughout the qualification as traditional music, and I've worked tirelessly to ensure that technology is comparable in every form, and I have responded to the consultation document from Ofqual quite verbally about how I felt the wording for technology was viewed in performance, and hopefully at the end of today I'll see if I was successful or not. But technology is absolutely at the heart of our qualification.
And I'd like to agree with Jeremy as well. When we were part of those consultations, Jeremy and I were both quite cool about the importance of technology being included in those specifications. OCR doesn't currently intend to bring out a separate music technology qualification of any kind. Therefore, I've again been really vocal and loud about making sure it is something that can be included in these general qualifications, and I wait with bated breath to see if our words are still in that document.
Indeed.
Thank you very much. Many my name's Rob, I'm a private piano teacher. Many students of 16 and above do their GCSE music study at school, but in terms of private teaching, I mean, clearly, you know, the reforms presented today represent a big step from what's gone on before, and almost certainly, you know, training will be available. Training will probably be available for teachers within the school setting, but what about training for private teachers as well? What sort of scope for training may be available for private teachers who might also teach GCSE music, as well as those working in a school?
Thank you. So the question is about support for private teachers who may not go through schools in particular. Sorry, it's a paraphrase.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll all be doing sort of preparing to teach events. And these are not just open to school teachers, they are open to anybody who wants to sign up and come on them. They'll be advertised on our websites, and I'm sure that's the same for everybody.
I think it's important that, because we've all said in this debate today that there's so much that we've all got to do the same, that the one area that we're all looking at is the resources and the support side. So I think all of the private music teachers and things are going to find that there's a lot of added resources to support the new quals.
So can I say we're coming to the last 5 minutes of this particular session. You will have had a reason for deciding to come this morning. Please make sure you don't leave the room without having your questions answered or making a comment, and then I'll come briefly to the rest of the panel in case anybody wants a final comment to make. But I've got two more hands, and I'll do those.
Hi, Catherine Barker, I'm from United Learning. Just a quick question about, I know the nitty-gritty has not exactly been decided on the course content, but I personally am a massive fan of the set works, and just wondering what the feeling is from the panel about the future of those within the curricula. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go for it. And looking down the list, this is something that none of us have openly said in front of any of each other yet. For Pearson, we are still looking at set works in our GCSE and our A-level. We currently have them. We will retain set works. That doesn't mean there will be the same set works, and it doesn't mean there will be as many as there is now. But we are looking to retain set works in both qualifications.
I'm just going to sit back and listen.
Just going to listen and then decide afterwards. Well, there is a requirement in our subject content that unheard, unseen, however you want to word it, music is a requirement across all of the three qualifications. Currently, as it stands, our areas of study at GCSE will work as sort of not prescribed works, but there will be an element of knowing what genres of music are going to come up in the listening exam. And to be quite honest, we haven't quite decided with our A-level yet, but I personally would like there to be an element of the choice, a little bit of both, some unheard and some prescribed, which is currently similar to what we do at the moment.
WJEC is going to have set works, definitely at A-level and AS, and actually we're bringing them back, but just in a very small way at GCSE, just because we feel that the step up to A-level requires it. So they're not going to be the overriding focus of our specification, but there will be something there in terms of prepared extracts as well as unprepared.
Oh, come on.
Oh, no, okay. Sorry. AQA, yes, is the answer, really, throughout the qualifications to some extent, but we've looked at it in proportion, shall we say.
Okay, I'm Judith Robinson from Sound and Music. I've got a comment to make about resubmitting pieces that have been written for AS for A-level. I would urge you, as practitioners in the classroom, to encourage your students to write afresh, because composing is a process, and every time you go through that creative process of starting and developing your music, you're going to learn, you're going to improve, you're going to get better. So if you just resubmit what you've got, there's going to be no progress for the learner, and the learner is the most important person in the room.
Thank you. Anybody else? Final comments? Final chance? Then, colleagues, anything else you want to say that you haven't had the opportunity so far anywhere in the board?
Nothing new to add, really, except that I will be around at the end, and I have some more leaflets if you haven't managed to pick one up, so please take a leaflet from me at the end. Thank you.
And again, I'd want to reiterate that, colleagues, I do appreciate your openness and frankness. We recognise that you're in a commercial world and that there's still room to influence, which is why do visit them on their stands. You may find you get even more fuller answers than they're able to give in a public forum. Who knows? But what we can hang on to is young people, maximum access, so that because at the end of the day, I think we want the variety from all four boards, and that means we want lots and lots of children finding ways to see that music at GCSE is relevant to them. I hope you have a wonderful day for the rest of the day. Thank you very much for coming, and have a good day. Thank you.